Call the meeting of the Moberly City Council to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Jeffrey,
Here.
Brubaker,
Here.
Kimmons,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Kaiser.
Here.
Thank you. Approval of minutes from the last meeting. You've all had a copy of those minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda, are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to canvass of ballots for council election. Number 2, municipal election certification results of the April 7th, 2020 election. Madam Clerk?
Okay. The certification board shows that John Kimmons Jr. Sorry. John Kimmons Jr. received 888 votes. Question 1, yes, 796 votes, no, 258 votes. Question 2, yes, 833 votes. Question 2, no, 218 votes.
All right, so you first officially certify those results? Do they need a motion approval?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next will be administrator the oath of office to the newly elected officials. Madam Clerk?
I, John Kimmons,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all the qualifications
prescribed by law for the office of council member,
prescribed by law for office of councilman.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Missouri,
and the state of Missouri
and the provision
and the provisions
of all laws
of all laws
of this state
of this state
affecting cities
affecting cities
of the class
of the class
to which the city of Moberly belongs,
to which the city of Moberly belongs,
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the city,
of the city,
and faithfully perform the duties of my office.
and perform the duties of my office. Thank you.
Congratulations, John.
Thank you.
How many is that?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Do I get to keep the pen?
No.
Oh. Thank you.
All right, congratulations, Mr. Kimmons. You are officially in for the next term.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is appointment of temporary chairman to preside, which is a sine die. So without objection, I'd ask the city manager, Mr. Crane, to temporarily preside over the meeting. Mr. Crane.
Thank you. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. And roll call.
Jeffrey,
Present.
Brubaker,
Here.
Kimmons,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Kaiser.
Yes, here.
All right, all members are present. We'll entertain election of mayor. The temporary chair would entertain nominations for mayor.
I move that Jerry Jeffrey be the mayor for this year.
There's been a motion by Councilman Brubaker to nominate Jerry Jeffrey as mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second by Councilman Kimmons. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, the temporary chair will close nominations. And is there a motion to approve Councilman Jeffrey as mayor?
So moved.
There's been a motion by Councilman Kimmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Brubaker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is the election of the mayor pro tem. I would entertain, all right, we need a roll call again, I guess, Mr. Crane?
No.
No? Okay. So we'll move on and ask for motions for the mayor pro tem. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move Tim Brubaker be mayor pro tem.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Any further motions? Hearing none. Do we need roll call on this or just a?
Just call for a vote.
Okay, all right. So ask for a motion for election of pro tem. Is there that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kaiser. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Mr. Brubaker is elected Mayor Pro Tem. This time, we don't have visitors. So what I would like to do is ask council to please come forward to the dais. And what we would like to do is offer a small token of our appreciation for the job that the city employees have done through this very stressful and difficult period of the COVID quarantine. So council will join me down front, and what we will do is award gift certificates to the department heads. And we'll do these by department. So first up on my right is Mr. Kaiser, and he has the, go to the police department, Mr. Fire Department, Chief Albert, will you come forward, please? Chief Albert, on behalf of the council, and we'd like to thank you for your reports and for your department. Appreciate it. Mr. Sanders, please come forward. I have street department, city development. So with that, please accept our gratitude. Thank you very much. To my left, Councilman Davis has Parks and Rec. Mr. Bach, would you come forward, please? All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Mr. Kimmons? And Mr. Kimmons has the police department. Chief Link, would you come forward, please? Thank you, Chief. And Councilman Brubaker, and he has the city water department. Ms. Calcagno. Thank you very much. Okay, I have a few others, and on behalf of the city clerk, would you please come forward, and we'll take care of your department? Okay, Galloway. Thank you very much. And Marva Viley, Shadow Personnel. Thank you very much. Last but not least, Finance Department, Mr. Hodge. These are all due, oh, I'm not even going to say. Mr. Hodge, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That concludes.
Mr. Mayor,
You have a few more?
last but not least,
Okay, I skipped one, sorry.
Madison Drell here, city manager.
Oh, we couldn't forget them. All right, well, once again, we want to thank all of you for your efforts over this very difficult time, and please accept this as a small token of our appreciation. Thank you. Okay, that puts us in ordinances and resolutions, so we are at number 3 in ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an ordinance declaring the results of the election held in the city of Moberly, Missouri on June 20th, 2020.
All right, there's a motion for the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? First reading.
An ordinance declaring the results of the election held in the city of Moberly, Missouri on June 2nd, 2020.
Are you, all right, you've heard the motion and the reading the first time. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, second reading.
An ordinance declaring the results of the election held in the city of Moberly, Missouri on June 2nd, 2020.
Okay, you've heard the second reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Roll call, please.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Brubaker?
Yes.
Kimmons?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Kaiser?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Number 4, an ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I have an ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a contract between the city of Moberly and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, providing for welcome to Moberly signage.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a contract between the city of Moberly and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, providing for welcome to Moberly signage.
All right, you've heard the first reading. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Davis?
would point out that I think the color of the sign has been changed to blue and with white letters. Is that correct? No wrap on it? Okay. All right.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing none, second, or hearing no more, second reading.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a contract between the city of Moberly and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, providing for welcome to Moberly signage.
All right, you've heard the second reading. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been motioned and seconded. Roll call, please.
Brubaker?
Yes.
Kimmons?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Kaiser?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes. Motion carries. Number 5, an ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an ordinance approving First Amendment to Development Agreement in connection with an industrial development project, and I ask that it be read twice for passage.
All right, you heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading?
An ordinance approving a First Amendment to Development Agreement in connection with an industrial development project and providing further authority.
All right, you've heard the first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none. Second reading?
An ordinance approving a First Amendment to Development Agreement in connection with an industrial development project and providing further authority.
All right, you have heard the second reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Is there a motion for approval of the ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Roll call, please.
Kimmons,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Brubaker,
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance is passed. Moving on to number 6, a resolution.
And Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute antenna leases to enable water meter reading technology. And I ask that it be read once for consideration.
All right, thank you. You've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion of the resolution. Hearing none, is there a motion for passage?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded.
Your Honor, I think we need.
Point of order?
resolution read.
Oh, we haven't read it yet. I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry, yeah. All right, so we'll go to the first reading of the ordinance first.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute antenna leases to enable water meter reading technology.
All right, and you've heard the reading. Now, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution is passed. I was just keeping on your toes, Chief Counsel.
Thank you.
Number 7, a resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution authorizing the mayor of Moberly, Missouri to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Moberly Area Community College.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution authorizing the mayor of Moberly, Missouri to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Moberly Area Community College.
All right, you've heard the reading of the ordinance. Is there any further discussion?
I had a question.
Mr. Brubaker.
I guess maybe Mary, I should ask this to you. Do we know what time frame it'll take to complete this project?
I'm not sure about timeframe for construction. I know they're anticipating design plans from their engineer next month, and they intend to go to bid as soon as the city approves those.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anyone else? All right, hearing no further discussion, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to number 7, or excuse me, number 8.
Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution accepting the bid of L&J Development Incorporated for construction of the Depot Park Shelter Restroom and authorizing contracting for the project.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution accepting the bid of L&J Development, Inc. for construction of the Depot Park Shelter Restroom and authorizing contracting for the project.
All right, you've heard the reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. We will move on to the appropriation resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I have a resolution appropriating money out of the treasury of the city of Moberly, Missouri, and I ask that it be read once for passage.
All right, you've heard the motion for the reading. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? First and only reading.
A resolution appropriating money out of the treasury of the city of Moberly, Missouri in the amount of $506,000, $867.71.
All right, you've heard the reading. I hereby certify that there is sufficient money standing to the credit of the city of Moberly, Missouri, unappropriated in the several funds covered by this resolution to meet the requirement of this resolution. Submitted Gregory L. Hodge, City Treasurer, City of Moberly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval of the resolution?
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. We'll move on to department head monthly reports. Mr. Crane, any comments or additions?
No, Mayor, they're all submitted. We'll answer any questions if you have any.
All right. Does anyone have questions about any of the departments, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple.
Mr. Davis?
This was for Greg Hodges. Greg, am I missing something? But when I was looking at the revenue reports for the half-cent sales tax for the Parks and Rec and then the 1% sales tax for the general fund, shouldn't those be exactly the double for the general fund? And it's not. And why is that?
They should run fairly close, but they're not exact, and that's just because of basically the receipts that the Department of Revenue gets and how they send them to us, so we really don't have the control over that. We don't see the detail coming into there, so there's always some little differences between those various sales taxes.
Yeah, I noticed that what's the other one besides the Parks and Rec, that, the transportation?
Transportation.
They're exactly the same on half cent, but you would think that the 1% would be just double it, and
Right.
there's quite a little bit of disparity between the two.
Yeah, and we've asked that question before and never really gotten just a real satisfactory answer on this. They said, well, it's just the way that the numbers fall coming through the system, so we just take it as we get it.
I have a question for Chief Link. Chief, I appreciate you sending us your policy and procedures manual. Okay, I'll wait till you get up here. Go ahead. Good, okay. I appreciate you sending us your policy and procedures manual, and I've reviewed it, and I think it's pretty comprehensive, and the only question I have is, what are we doing to make sure that your patrolmen and your police people under you are aware of it and practicing what's in the manual?
So when an officer is hired, they have to read the manual and sign off on it. And then we have yearly use of force trainings by MERMA that come up yearly, usually in December or January. They have to go through that training.
Okay.
And then we also, on occasion, when MERMA sends us updates, then we rewrite the policies and put it back out for signage again.
Okay.
So use of force is an ongoing training process, not only from a constitutional law aspect, but also in their self-defense training, firearms training, handcuffing training. That's all part of that process every time they have training on it.
Okay. Can you tell me what a kinetic energy impact projectile is?
Yes, sir. It's a beanbag round.
It's a what?
A beanbag round.
Beanbag? Okay.
Yep.
And what is a less than legal extended range impact projectile?
It should be less than lethal.
Less lethal.
Less lethal. That's a beanbag round as well.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, we have them in 3 calibers. We have them in 12 gauge, 37 millimeter, and 40 millimeter.
Okay. And the last question is, how many use of force reports have you had to review in the last year?
Don't know the last year, we haven't tallied those. In 2019, we had 13.
13? Okay.
Out of 11,303 calls, we had 13 use of force incidents within the city of Moberly that my officers completed. That's 0.001% of the calls resulted in a use of force call or use of force form being completed.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And we haven't tallied 2020s yet. I won't do that till the end of the year, but we're going to run about the same number that we have for 2019 and 2018. 18 was 15, 19 was 13. We're going to be about that same number. Our use of forces have decreased over the last 7 or 8 years significantly.
That's great. And I think you know why we're asking these, or I'm asking the questions.
Sure. And actually, MIRMA has a meeting on Monday to review these policies again, and they've asked me to sit on that review board. So I've asked the same question with MIRMA. Are we looking at changes? Everything is in turmoil right now, but our use of force is still rooted in the Fourth Amendment and what the Supreme Court set down in the 1989 case, Connor versus Graham. That's where the reasonableness standard comes from, and that's what we've been working on since '89. There's been no significant changes to use of force policies since that decision from the Supreme Court. And we renewed ours in '17, and basically they just updated the language. What was reasonable was still the same as it had been prior to '17 when they redid it in '17.
Okay. And for the record, I want to emphasize that the use of strangleholds is barred or banned by the Moberly Police Department.
Yes.
In our policy.
Highway Patrol can use them.
Okay.
We do not.
I have no say over the Highway Patrol.
That comes up sometimes. We do not practice them, we do not teach them, we do not authorize them. The only way it would be would be in a life or death situation in which the officer is losing the fight badly, fears for his safety, and
Absolutely.
then it's Katie bar the door, anything goes at that point. But as a general rule, we do not.
Yeah.
Those are unacceptable and prohibited.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I have, Mr. Brubaker.
Thank you. Not sure who to ask this, maybe Tom? It was just an observation. I noticed on page, what is that, 71, those first two paragraphs under talking about occupancy inspections. I think this has been on here exactly like this for at least 3 months in a row, or three or four meetings in a row. I didn't know if you just keep that on there all the time, or, okay.
It's not working.
Now,
There it is.
it was on yellow. No, I'll check that. You know, like I say, several of us add portions of it, and I didn't add that segment, so I'll just have to make sure.
I couldn't tell if that was Rick or someone else put that on there.
It should be from Karen, but it may be something that, she just hasn't.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kaiser.
Tom, do we have any update on the project of the demolitions in the sense of how close we are to starting that? Have we heard any information from the state that the funding is indeed still there?
Yes.
Their budget issues?
Yes, everything is going well. We've got all of our properties cleared for the first round. And I was hoping we'd have it by the end of June, but she's looking more like, I think she was shooting for like June, middle of June, or July, excuse me. So I think it was like July 11th is what she kind of said that would hopefully be the date. We're still waiting on the environmental review stuff to be approved. But once that happens, then we should be good to go in July.
Okay, and when are we expecting those to start happening, the actual demolition? Do we
If
have-
we can go out for bid in mid-July, it'd be 30 days, probably give 20 to 30 days bid time on that, just depends. And then, probably a couple weeks, so I'd say 45 days after mid-July, so
So,
end of
beginning of
August.
September?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my question.
Thank you. I have one for Ms. Calcagno. I noticed in your report there was a description of a major water leak, and I was just curious, could you give us more info on where that was in town? Because it was quite a large water loss?
It was a very large water loss. So there was an abandoned service in the 600 block of West Coate Street. And when the boring crew went through, we think they hit that. And it was running into our sewer line, so it did not surface. The crews were downtown doing CCTV work for the sewers, noticed the unexpected amount of water getting into the sewer, and started hunting for that, and that's how we found it. We think it had been running probably since last fall.
Wow. Coach Street then, huh?
Yes.
Okay, because I saw where you had a patch or something there on Fifth Street, but I didn't.
Yeah, and it may have been 601 West Coast, so that service may have come off that line on Fifth.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? Any further questions for staff reports? All right, hearing none, we will move on to application for Airport Advisory Commission. Mr. Crane?
Yes, Mayor, we had 2 applications for the Airport Advisory Commission, and the council at the work session recommended approving Bill Stewart for that reappointment.
All right, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
And a second, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Stewart's appointed. Appointment to Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes, Mayor, we had 3 openings. Barb Bogie decided she would not like to seek re-election or reappointment. Connie Asbury and Bob Riley did commit to serving another term, and Lorna Miles was recommended to move forward with Bob Riley and Connie Asbury.
Okay, so we still have one that we,
We have 1 additional application, I think.
okay. So we need a motion to that effect?
So move. Oh, are we, point of order?
Yeah, Mr. Davis.
Could I have a clarification what our motion is?
That would be the appointment. It was recommended at a work session to appoint Connie Asbury, Bob Riley, and Lorna Miles as
The
in.
3 of them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
So move.
and then is there a second?
Second?
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those 3 are appointed to Planning and Zoning. Appointment of council member to Historic Preservation Commission. I've not spoken about each of these to the council people, but I plan on nominating the same people and go to the same particular appointments. Mr. Kaiser, are you wanting to stay on that, or you would rather just do Planning and Zoning?
I can do both.
All right. Do you need a vote on each one of these, or do you need overall once we go down the list? Okay, so we'll do this. Okay, so then we'll move on. Under appointment of council member to Planning and Zoning will be Mr. Austin Kaiser and myself. Appointment of council member to Tourism Advisory will be Mr. John Kimmons. And appointment of council member to Parks and Rec Board as liaison is Mr. Cole Davis. I don't see the appointment to the SID.
Oh, we left that off.
So that would be Mr. Tim Brubaker. We'll just make that one up on the agenda.
Thank you for catching that.
So,
Is he qualified?
so those are the appointments. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Consideration for approval of renewal liquor applications.
Okay, we have Twisted Llama, Walgreens, Walmart, Mexican Restaurant, Felicia's, Moberly Mart, Express Liquors, both of them, and they all have the necessary signatures.
All right. Any discussion of those approvals? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve those applications?
So move.
Been motioned by Mr. Brubaker and seconded by Mr. Kaiser. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we have a work session. Is there anything else to come in front of the council this evening? Okay, you've presented your card?
Yes.
Okay, here's the way this is going to go. When you spoke to the council last time, you insulted several people who work for the city. You insulted several of us. If you want to speak in front of this board tonight, I'll accept your apology and you can speak. Otherwise, all right, well, sit down, you're done. I'll enter a motion to adjourn. No, you don't have the floor. Chief Link?
You just gave it to me.
No, I did not. You're done. You don't, you stand up here like you did the last meeting and abuse people. You insult people. You're out. All right, so
Get out of his face.
Chief, please remove this person.
You live in the house, you know what you done, boy. You wrote the whole damn block. And everybody down there digging up the ground.
Okay, so now we will go and I will entertain a motion to adjourn the work session, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are adjourned. And now we will take up the agenda of the work session and move to item number 1, discussion of change order number 2 on the Harrison and Garfield project.
This is quite an extensive, it's a reduction, so that's the good news, but we're adding quite a bit more product to this job. You know, that was originally started out, we were gonna do new curb and gutter, and that was the big part of the project from McKinsey back up to Carpenter Street. That left from Carpenter to Logan untouched on Garfield and Harrison. This process has been about a 2.5-year project, and so to get the grant completed in that time, the deteriorated curbs in that area were holding more water and ponding more water. As we started getting work in that area and digging the water lines up, we realized how degraded those were, and the flow line of the curbs had settled out more, and we're not gonna be able to use them. So we couldn't put back a new street with the curb lines holding water. So we had to go and find a way to be able to put all new curbs up Garfield all the way to Logan. So that's being done in this project. You know, that's about a $65,000 increase. But how we're saving those monies are, I met with APAC, our capital, who's gonna be doing our overlay this year. And instead of having the utility contractors that are doing the work on the water lines and other stuff come back in and do concrete patching and asphalt patching, they're not as efficient and their unit prices are higher on that kind of stuff. So we're gonna have them just fill it all the way to the top with gravel. So there's a slight increase for the compacted fill. We've got an increase on tearing out more curb and gutter. And we also are gonna be adding more ditches and tubes up along the last block of Harrison. That'll help it drain better as well. So we'll have new driveway cut to change those tubes out through that section from Carpenter to Logan. So those are a lot of increases. We also had an increase, there's several utility increases for some water line work and some additional areas on that. In addition, we also had to take out some additional trees down there on the project on the McKinsey drainage, which is on south. We had to do about 11.5 in additional increase on there. So several of these things are utilities, but overall, and again, it's a reduction in the overall contract for a lot more work out there.
Okay. All right, does anyone have questions for Mr. Sanders?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Davis?
What's the bottom line on this? I mean, you said there was going to be a reduction. What's the
The reduction is only like 6,000, I think, it's $6,700, I think.
Okay.
And the bottom line is?
The bottom line is, it's 1.327 million, I believe. I don't have that total in front of me, but it went
Yeah,
from like,
I think you're right. I've just tried, I read it this afternoon, but I couldn't remember what it was. But
like
you're getting a lot more work or bang for your dollar.
yeah, we eliminated that. There was about $170,000 worth of utility, of patchwork. And we had to do some of that because of the valve clusters at the intersections. We couldn't leave those exposed for damage from the traffic. So there's some of that been patched back with concrete already. And then of course, on McKinsey Street is concrete, so we had to patch that back with concrete where we tied in. But the rest will all be done with the capital paving.
Okay.
So you're saying a net decrease though overall?
Yes, net decrease of about a little over $6,000.
Okay,
Good job.
thank you very much. All right, moving to number 2. Now, is there number 2 and number 3, is there 2 contracts at each line here, Mr. Crane? I think I
Yes.
read it. Two
Yes.
different companies, correct?
Right, so the owner of the property is Horizon Housing Foundation. So the first agreement is the actual purchase of the property for a little over $11,000. Then the second agreement is a management and development agreement with ND Consulting, who would like to put forward an application again for the low-income tax credit program.
Okay. So, does anyone have questions about the contracts on the junior high building?
So
Mr.?
we're saying we're gonna spend $11,000 to buy it back?
$11,000 is what the current owner has invested in the property over the last, I think, 5 years.
Okay, how much are we looking to, is it gonna cost us to buy it back? Is that what this is?
The 11,000, yeah,
So we're gonna give them 11,000 for this property?
to take title to the property.
Now, is this going to be a purchase from Parks and Rec Department, or is it a
Yeah,
direct?
ultimately, we think if the housing development doesn't happen, then that will be Tannehill Park.
I think that's what we discussed in budget. Any other questions?
What's the, if we buy this building back, what's it gonna cost us to tear it down if we don't get the grants and everything?
We were thinking about 75 to 100,000. That was a couple years ago, but we haven't bid it out recently. That's the tear down cost. And really, you know, the current owner said, that since we've worked with them at the application process, that they'd be willing to offer it to us for what they have in it, their carrying cost, which is the
understand that.
11,000. If we are not interested in it, that's fine. They'll just put it on the market.
We,
I'm sorry.
well, the possibility always exists that whoever that owner would be now or later, if they don't have success doing whatever they want with it, then it could end up in our lap to be torn down anyway. So in my estimation, a lot of this is just giving us another period of time to control it, to try to come up with some successful options of what to do with it, because we know that if they just abandon the plan and nobody picks it up, it could end up either as an eyesore, or that it ends up in our lap and we have to pay to tear it down anyway. You have a hand up, Tim? Mr. Kaiser?
My issue is that, I mean, it's not my fault, it's not our fault that they had a business plan that did not work out. I have no desire to subsidize that. But my big thing is that we're in the middle of a budget season where we're trying to scale everything back and so on, telling staff members we're gonna freeze their wages, and yet we're spending more money on yet another property in downtown. I'm not in favor of spending money on it, quite frankly. I think if it's important to the community to restore that building or do anything with that building, then they set up a private fund and fundraiser and come up with the money. We've got too many projects of spending tax dollar money on buildings and so on. I'm against it. That's my personal opinion.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Davis?
what are the odds of us getting this grant? We've tried and
We've
tried.
applied probably 5 to 7 times. 7? We've applied 7 times.
And without the grant, nobody's willing to develop the property.
The current owner, that's their model. You know, we might be able to market it as a market-based project. I just don't see the problem is with these old buildings that it's generally, it costs less to tear it down and build a new one.
So, I mean, I agree with you, Mayor, that we could, in all probability, be stuck with the building no matter what. And I see your logic in wanting to control it, but I don't know if it's, having control of it's worth $11,000. And seems to me like we're paying this guy back $11,000, and we're eventually, one way or another, we're going to wind up tearing it down at our cost.
Well, I think the history of it, correct me if I'm correct or wrong, Mr. Crane, but this person paid the previous owner a certain amount of money, and then they had, or they had whatever dollars in the development of it, which is what they're talking about, the 11,000. We never owned it.
So,
We only paid $1, he only paid $1 for it.
so it was, I think, a gift. So
Okay.
they gave.
But they spent, what they're saying is they spent that amount of money in the last several
That's what it
years.
took to mow.
Mowing the grass, which, I mean, we don't put a dollar amount on it, but if we have to mow it, I mean,
There will be.
somebody abandons it, we will
So
be.
for example, it cost them carrying costs of $11,000 over the last 5 years. That was mostly the mowing bills and any type of routine maintenance.
Yeah. Have you gotten any kind of feedback from either Parks and Rec or the Historical Society about this? Are they even current on where this project is?
Well, the Parks and Rec is very interested in the property, not the building. The Historic Society, it's on our national registry as a building by itself, so it's independently on the registry. One of the few properties in town that's on the registry by itself. And it's a Ludwood op design.
So if we don't control this property, then you really can't build the splash pad in the back because they didn't convey the other piece, if I
No,
read
they-
that contract right.
They still need to do that. Even if this deal doesn't happen, they need to fulfill the terms of that agreement.
Okay.
We just didn't really want to pay for a survey if they were
Right.
going to give us the whole property eventually.
Right.
I got one more question.
Mr. Kaiser?
Am I correct that this falls under the historical district downtown?
It, not only does it fall in the district, it's also individually eligible.
Okay, so the point about the eyesore, we have the Historical Downtown Preservation Committee that enforces the rules of downtown. So they have power to say, hey, you can't have boards, wood covering up windows, that kind of thing. So whoever buys it, we have the power to force them to keep upkeep on it. Second of all, if they don't find anybody, the grant success has not been there. It'll probably end up being our building anyway, but we didn't spend $11,000. So that's why I'm saying.
How do you think the Historical Commission is going to enforce those rules? We can't enforce code enforcement now.
They do it.
So how they're going to do it? They can just put an assessment on it like everything else, which still doesn't get it enforced.
I understand.
So it could sit there and look like West Park or something else.
It would go through the abatement process.
Yeah, so we really don't have a way, even with what you're talking about. They could say that they have to, like you, but there's no power to enforce that they not let all the windows blow out of it. And, I mean, at least these folks did fix the windows, and I don't know what it's worth, but the roof, if I understood the report that was written, needs some attention at some point. So if you let that go while you're waiting on a miracle to happen, then it may be beyond or actually take more money yet. So I'm willing to have a further discussion with the Historical Society to hear what they have to say. But I know a lot of communities, St. Charles being one, used one of their big old buildings as an exposition center. I'm not saying the city should do that, but if it's torn down or it gets in worse condition, we won't have those options. So if the park is talking about wanting the back property and it's going to come out of their funding, then I'm fine in trying to have more control of it, because we really didn't with this other entity. We've never had control of it to market it the way we want to or in what we want.
So, I mean, there is, Mayor, if I could.
Yes, Mr.
there is-
Crane.
There is 2 contracts, so there is potential that you could buy it for $11,000 and say no to continuing the low-income tax credit program. So you can move both forward, neither forward, or one and not the other forward.
Okay, give me the explanation, because I did read them, but the first one is just
Just buying the property.
buying the property. That's all it is.
Second one's a management agreement, basically giving Indy Consultant the exclusive.
So they're
right
going to try
apply.
again, is what you're saying.
They said 2 more times, I think.
What we're doing is we'll sell it to them if they get the tax credits.
I
That's
see. So
basically
they obviously think there's enough chance they were going to try it.
Well, I would say they've invested about 20 grand into the application process, so putting the application in front of the Housing Development Commission is, they've already invested in the application. If you see this drawing here, shows you what their application was last time.
Well, I mean, technically, we've got money invested in it because we invested in cleaning up that back part so that it could be a project. So we've got skin in the game right now.
Yes. Well, we traded, so we did the demo of the gym for extra ground for Tannehill Park.
Anybody have any other questions? Mr. Kimmons? No?
Well, I listened to what Austin says, and I don't like the 11,000 either, but I don't like the fact that if it sits there and just goes to ruin, we've got that to deal with, because we've lost control on it. So it's a bitter pill either way for me. I guess what I'm saying is I would like to see it be the lesser problem. And if that means controlling it and being able to keep it from further deterioration, maybe it's worth the 11,000, though I don't like to spend that kind of money for it. But
All right. Since we may have a split of opinion here, I guess I would entertain a motion of those that want to move it forward. It's not final, but we can get further explanation or discussion with some of the parties that might have more to do with this, but we have never been in the driver's seat as far as the building itself. So, is there a motion to move it forward, I guess is my
Mr.
point.
Mayor, point of order. If I'm understanding, what we're doing is moving the first part of that contract forward, or are we just moving? I really feel like I need to understand better the
Okay.
best way to protect ourselves with this.
Okay, so what I would ask is a motion to move forward the purchase of the building, and
Is it proper
Possible.
to, a motion to table this until the next time so that we can study it more?
I mean, I don't think it's improper, but you're basically just moving it forward to the next meeting for further discussion, and it can be stopped or go forward at that point. So if we don't go forward here, we're not authorizing that any other connection or discussion or fact-finding gets done. Correct?
Yeah, you could table at the next meeting if you
We can
would.
table it at the
I'd be more
next meeting.
comfortable with tabling it and maybe discussing it further. I mean, is there a chance that this guy would take $1 for this building? I mean, $11,000 to buy a money pit just doesn't work well with me. I'm not, and this thing is a money pit. It could,
He might take $1. I don't know if it'd be from us. I mean, if he can get $1 from us, he might do it, but if he could get 1,000 or 5,000 from somebody else, I think they're gonna try to.
And then we got a
They're
problem.
gonna maximize.
I mean, they're going, whoever buys it for $1 or 5,000 is going to have a money pit on its hands unless he can get the grants.
And
That's what we had for
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
Person bought it for a little amount, and it set and went down, and they didn't want to do anything, didn't do anything, didn't get anything done. So that's the whole point of control is, we can always sell it.
The way he's explained it to me was, they'll sell it for what they got in it. If we don't want it, they're gonna put it on the market and see what they can get for us. Now, if they can't get anybody to buy it while it's on the market, maybe they would give it to us for $1.
Yeah.
But then we got a round of, and this is where maybe tabling it right now, I don't know what the timeline is, but usually by, mid to late summer, they're working on an application for the low-income tax credit program. So if we don't have a deal in place, I don't know if ND Consulting will be ready to move forward with another round of application if we're waiting till August potentially or July.
Well, can you explain to me why they need to sell it to us in order to make the application for the grants?
The current property owner felt like they've tried 5 times and they're done trying.
So the thought is that if if it's owned by the city, that it would be more chances of getting the grant?
Potentially. I mean, but that's not, you got to realize you're dealing with two different organizations. One organization's the owner, the other organization is a developer. So the organization, the owner, is a housing foundation out of St. Louis. They really don't have a reason to be here. They did this as a favor to the developer 5 years ago to try to get this project done. Now that it hasn't gotten done, they're ready to pull back and focus on what they normally do. So that's why they've said, we're out. And ND Consulting said, hey, we've already got everything together. We might as well apply again.
All right, Mr. Kaiser?
My understanding is that we're in work session, so if we move it forward, we're actually at a city council meeting where it'll be a yes or no vote. So I would like to, if it's appropriate, to make a motion that we table this until the next work session so we can advise what our options are and weigh them. Because if they need to start applications in August, it's not going to mess them up if we wait till July, the first meeting of July to move this to city council.
What other information would you want? We've got a contract where we would buy it and then have them proceed with the development. So what are we going to find out in the meantime?
Well, you said that he might take less money for it.
Yeah?
That's one option. The other option is we need to talk to those other committees to see if there's interest among them. We can talk to Parks Rec and see if there's interest in how this would fall in their budget or in the general fund. I mean, there's more
I
things
think
here
that's
to
been done,
discuss.
but yeah, there are a few other things.
So I would like to table it. Whether it's a motion, you tell me, but I'd like to table it until the next work session before we vote to move it to city council meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's tabled.
So you want it on
Put it on
next
the
work?
next work session.
Next work
agenda.
session is fine, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that will skip number 3 then, right?
Yeah, we.
Takes care of it.
Mr. Mayor,
And-
point of order, one of the things that wasn't mentioned was the cost, immediate cost if we buy the building of, I think there was a mention of a roof problem, and so before we bring it back up for consideration, could you look at it and see what our immediate cost is going to be on this besides the 11,000?
Yeah, we're waiting on a price right now. Beaverson Roofing's been up there. It needs a new roof ultimately, but there's some Band-Aids we could potentially do during the application process.
Yeah, I'd like to know our initial cost on it besides the 11, if we buy it, so.
For repair or?
Yeah, I mean, just to get it back where, it's not going to deteriorate on us, as you said.
Pretty shot.
Sorry?
It's pretty shot right now. It needs a new roof.
Yeah, I know, I mean, there's a lot of windows boarded up and everything else.
All right, we're moving on to receipt of bids for airport runway project.
Yes, we had the bid opening for the airport runway project. You can see we had 3 different bidders. 5, I'm sorry, and ES&S for 5.56470305 was the low and best bid, and that's what we're recommending being moved forward.
All right. Questions about the runway project?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Davis?
this is all being paid for by a grant, is that not right?
Yes, FAA,
You know,
yep, federal funds.
it was supposed to, pay 90, and then now we learned that it's going to pay 100%. Yeah, very good. Okay.
So is this both directions or just the one north-south?
This is the main runway 1321, so it's just the long,
Okay.
the longest runway, the blacktop. Everything else you see is in concrete, so the blacktop runway is getting taken out. And if you look up at the end, the north end there, you see the white hash marks at the end of the runway. There's that last 336 feet, which calls displaced threshold. We technically can't call that part of our runway right now because it's approximately the highway. So that 336 feet of that and the taxiway to get taken off and constructed on the other end. So it'll be 5,000 foot, but it's going to be all shifted down to the south further on this large toe down here at the bottom, so.
Okay.
The runway be 75 feet wide instead of 100 feet wide.
All right, anybody have a problem moving that forward?
Yeah, I have one more question. Tom, you said you did say it was all federal money? Yeah, that's great, because,
Sometimes there's state money, there's the NPD money, and we have past years.
yeah.
We've spent all our past year NPD money, so it's done all federal.
Yeah, the way the governor's pulling back money now on all these things, I'd be a little worried if it was state money.
Mr. Brubaker.
Brian, or Tom, I don't remember, ESS, where are they based out of? Oh, okay.
And they've done every phase of our airport. I mean, they've just got bids on every, very competitive locally.
Yeah. They employ quite a few people from this area.
Even Moberly.
Right.
NIDAC are the second lowest bidder. It's actually, they're very competitive in runway. They're actually building a runway in Chillicothe right now, but I think they're up by St. Joe. So probably logistically, it's going to be number one.
Okay, anyone opposed to moving that forward? Hearing none, that will move forward to the next meeting. And we'll move on with a resolution approving grant funding to area civic and charitable organizations.
Yes, Mayor, this is our annual service agreements. You can see that all of them have received some form of a reduction in the past few years. Moberly Council on the Arts, 1,000, Chamber of Commerce, 15,750, Senior Center, 4,000, NOMO, 1,000, and Community Betterment, 1,500.
Mr. Kaiser.
Are we still putting the downtown, Moberly Downtown Association, what are they called now? Are they under the Chamber of Commerce like we did last year? Or they?
No, the Main Street?
Yeah, Main Street.
No. They're not. We've waited for them to figure out what they're going to do before they've submitted a
Okay.
request for funding.
And are we at that time going to do it under the chamber like we did last year, or are we going to do it separate? Or
I
we
don't
don't know. We don't know. Okay, fair enough.
I'm still waiting for them to come back to me with what they want to do.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Brubaker.
Brian, I'm familiar with most of them up there and, what their purpose, what they do here in town. NOMO Foundation, NOMO, can you explain what they've been doing the past year?
Well, their big project right now is the redevelopment of a home that they acquired through a tax sale, and they're going to try to redevelop it with the VOTEC kids, building trades.
So they were working on it last year, or?
Yeah. They had to wait a year, I think, for it to clear the tax rolls. And then they also do quite a bit of holding of funds for entities that might not have a donation system set up. So you can say, like, for example, 2 years ago, I think it was the Vests. They accepted donations for vests, and then they donate the proceeds of the donations to buy vests for the police department. Shepherd Brother Boulevard was another one. So the Shepherd Brothers and others donated to NOMO, and then NOMO cuts the check. That way
Okay.
it gives them the tax credit.
Thank you.
All right, anyone opposed to moving that forward? All right, hearing none, we'll move that one forward and move on to number 6, results of qualifications for engineering services.
Yes, as the summary sheet shows, we ranked, we had advertised for requests for qualifications for engineering firms. This is how all local governments are required to obtain engineering services. We do a qualifications-based selection. It's not the lowest bid. We advertise for qualifications for water and sewer and stormwater infrastructure engineering services. A team of staff took those 17 submittals that were received, ranked those based on the scoring sheet that you saw in your packet, and then we negotiate with the top-ranked firm and move down. If we can't get a contract to agree to from that firm, then we go down the list.
All right, questions about the engineering qualifications? And so the result and selection is Jacobs, is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
There were three very close together. The way that we advertised the submittals or the request for qualifications was it's called an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. So it's not a set time, it's not a set project. And so it'll be an on-call contract, and we have the opportunity to select more than one firm. So one of the things that I wanted to have the flexibility to do was to select the team that was best suited for the project that we had at hand. So the way that we advertise this will allow us to do that.
All right. Anyone, Mr. Kaiser?
One question, am I correct that in the past we've used Bartle and West for the majority recent years for engineering, and now we're gonna change to Jacobs?
We have been using Jacobs Engineering for 18 years, I think.
Okay.
For water and sewer projects. Bartlett and West has done some in recent years.
Okay.
Schaefer, Klein and Warren has done some. Pepping Stone Bach has done some. So it's just kind of been scattered through the years.
But Jacobs has been the primary in the recent years?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anyone opposed to moving that forward? All right, hearing none, thank you, Ms. Congagno, and we will move that forward to the next meetings. Is there anything else to come in front of the work session for this evening? All right, we do not have a closed session, right, Mr. Crane?
If you want to, you've got that Terrell Road project.
Okay, brief one? Okay, so at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn from the work session to a closed session. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion is seconded. Roll call, please. Yes.
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 All right, motion carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you all for